Most warnings don't come in the form of 300 pages of fiction that haunt you for decades. But that's what George Orwell gave us in 1984. It wasn't just a story, it was a diagnosis of the human tendency to surrender truth, language, and freedom when fear and comfort pull in opposite directions. When Orwell wrote it in 1948, he'd seen enough of the 20th century to know how quickly a society could be reshaped when people stopped questioning and started accepting. The war was over, but totalitarianism was still alive in Stalin's USSR, in the shadows of Nazi Germany's collapse, and in the creeping expansion of state control elsewhere. Orwell condensed all of that into a world where Big Brother watches everything, where history is rewritten daily, where your very thoughts can be a crime. The most chilling thing about 1984 is not that it's fantasy, it's that every element of it has a seed in reality. Newspeak, the simplified language designed to make rebellion unthinkable, has echoes in the way political slogans and corporate PR reduce complex issues into emotionally loaded sound bites. Doublethink, the art of holding two contradictory ideas as true, is visible whenever public narratives change overnight and people pretend they always believed the new version. The thought police aren't kicking down most of our doors, but social pressure, online mobs, and mass surveillance can have the same effect, making you self-censor before you've even spoken. Orwell understood that control doesn't begin with force, it begins with the slow erosion of truth. In his essay Politics and the English Language, he warned that when language is manipulated, thought itself decays. If words are vague, if their meanings can be twisted to fit the needs of power, then reality becomes negotiable. And when reality is negotiable, whoever controls the narrative controls the world. We've seen this before in the real world. In East Germany, the Stasi built one of the most invasive surveillance networks in history. They didn't need to arrest everyone. They just needed enough people to know they were being watched. Neighbors reported on neighbors. Friends turned on each other. Private life became a memory. In the Soviet Union, history books were revised constantly. Photographs were altered to erase unpersons, and the official truth could change overnight. Citizens adapted by practicing a kind of mental gymnastics, what Orwell called doublethink, nodding along in public while silently thinking something else. Today, we like to believe we're immune. We have free speech, a free press, access to information. But Orwell's point was that a society like 1984 doesn't arrive all at once. It creeps in quietly, through small compromises. We stop reading critically and start scrolling passively. We accept headlines without digging deeper. We allow language to be twisted until debate becomes impossible because no one agrees on the meaning of the words anymore. We get comfortable with being watched because it's convenient. Think about your own digital life. How much of it is truly private? How much of your understanding of the world comes second-hand, filtered through an algorithm that decides what you see and what you don't? How often do you change your opinion to fit in, rather than risk speaking what you actually believe? These aren't distant warnings, they're present questions. There's a metaphor that helps illustrate this. Imagine a library where every book is slowly being replaced, not burned, not banned, just edited. A sentence here, a paragraph there. A few years later, the books say something slightly different. A few decades later, no one remembers the originals. The shelves look the same. The covers are the same. But the truth has been rewritten. This is how 1984 happens. Not in an explosion, but in a quiet, almost invisible shift, until reality belongs to someone else. The danger isn't just that power rewrites history, it's that we start to forget there was ever another version. Orwell's protagonist, Winston Smith, works at the Ministry of Truth, rewriting old records to match the party's current claims. He knows the truth is being destroyed, but over time, even his own memory begins to fade. This is the ultimate victory of control, not just silencing dissent, but making the memory of dissent disappear. So what do we do with this warning? The first step is to see it. Orwell's book is uncomfortable because it makes you realize that control and freedom aren't abstract. They're lived every day in the way you speak, listen, and question. Protecting them isn't a once-in-a-generation act. It's a daily practice. That's why 1984 still matters. It's not about predicting the future. It's about recognizing the patterns in the present. There are 3 ways you can apply Orwell's warning in your own life. First, guard the integrity of your language. Be precise with your words, and don't let slogans do your thinking for you. Second, question the sources of your information. If something feels too neat, too certain, ask what's missing. Third, resist the temptation to live in mental autopilot. A free mind takes work, reading deeply, listening to those you disagree with, and being willing to hold an unpopular truth. Orwell wasn't optimistic in 1984. The book ends with Winston's spirit broken, loving Big Brother. But that wasn't because Orwell thought resistance was impossible. It was because he wanted to shock readers out of complacency. His other writings, especially his essays, show a deep belief in the importance of individual thought and honest language. His warning wasn't that the future is fixed. It was that the future is shaped by what we allow today. The reality is, freedom rarely disappears in a dramatic moment. It dissolves in the space between convenience and vigilance. We trade privacy for comfort. We trade truth for belonging. We trade thinking for being told what to think. And every time we make that trade, the world of 1984 moves a little closer. The choice, then, isn't whether Orwell's vision will come true. It's how far we'll let it go before we notice. And the answer to that is personal. It starts with what you choose to see, what you choose to say, and what you refuse to forget. Orwell's warning is not just about governments, it's about human nature. It's about how easily we adapt to control when it arrives dressed as safety or convenience or progress. The tools of surveillance today are not always forced upon us. Sometimes we willingly invite them in, disguised as entertainment or efficiency. A camera in every pocket, a microphone in every room, a feed that knows us better than we know ourselves. The real defense against a 1984-like world isn't in some grand political upheaval. It's in the stubbornness of individuals who refuse to stop thinking for themselves. That means holding on to inconvenient truths, even when they isolate you. It means being willing to ask, who benefits from me believing this, before accepting a narrative. It means protecting your mind as fiercely as you protect your home. And here's the thing. Power doesn't need you to love it. It just needs you to stop noticing it. The fight for freedom is fought not just in courts or parliaments, but in living rooms, classrooms, and online spaces, where we decide whether to speak up or stay silent, whether to seek the truth or settle for the comfortable lie. Orwell gave us 1984 not to make us despair, but to hand us a mirror, to remind us that the erosion of freedom is always gradual, and that by the time we realize it's gone, it's often too late to get it back. The lesson is simple, but not easy. Never surrender your ability to question. Keep your language honest, your sources varied, and your thoughts your own. Because the moment we stop doing that, the moment we trade truth for convenience, 1984 stops being a novel and starts being the world outside our window.